So, when you hear the words university level grammar exam, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Probably stress, right? Red ink, super complex rules. But what if we looked at it a totally different way? What if, instead of a test, we saw it as this incredible set of blueprints for the English language itself? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to kick things off with this sentence, which comes straight from our source exam paper. And, it's a feeling we can all relate to, right? Being lost somewhere new, totally unable to communicate. It's a simple, really powerful idea. But the way it's actually put together, well, that's where things get really interesting. And that really leads us to the big question here. How do you go from a simple thought to a sentence that's so well built? What is the hidden architecture that's holding the whole thing up? To figure that out, we've got to grab our tools and, well, start taking it apart. Okay, so let's get into part one, deconstruction. It's just like being an engineer. Before you can build something amazing, you have to understand how it works. So we're going to take these sentences apart piece by piece and see what makes them tick. Think of us as architecture students, and this exam paper, well, this is our master blueprint. This isn't about just finding the right answer. Not at all. It's about understanding the choices a writer makes, the little tweaks and structures that create meaning and make a sentence flow. So let's pull out one of our first tools from the toolbox. It's called a participle phrase. Now I know that sounds super technical and maybe a little intimidating, but the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It's a fantastic way to blend actions and descriptions together to make your writing smoother and more dynamic. Let me show you what I mean. Just look at this transformation. The sentence on the left, after I had walked, it's fine, it gets the job done. But listen to the version on the right using that participial phrase, having walked. Can you hear that difference? It's shorter, it's punchier, it has a way better rhythm. It just connects the two ideas so much more elegantly. This is a perfect little example of what we're talking about. All right, so that was a pretty straightforward one. But what happens when we come up against a real heavyweight? A sentence with tons of moving parts. How do you even begin to wrap your head around that? Check this one out. It's also from our source text. There's a lot going on in here, isn't there? You've got an attempt, you've got a failure, and then you've got the reason for the failure, all woven together in one go. So let's get this thing on the analysis table and see what it's really made of. And here's the breakdown. This big sentence is basically built from two ideas that could totally be sentences on their own. Think of them as complete thoughts. Those are our independent clauses. Then it bolts on this extra bit of information that explains why, and that's the dependent clause because it can't really stand alone. So when you stick them all together, two or more complete thoughts plus one of these extra dependent pieces, you get what's called a compound complex sentence. See? Once you spot these simple building blocks, even the scariest looking sentences start to make perfect sense. Okay, so we've successfully taken the engine apart. We know how all the pieces work. Now for the really fun part. Part two, reconstruction. Now that we know what all these components do, we can start using them to build our own powerful, stylish sentences from scratch. This is where we get to be creative. The exam gives us this challenge. Take this handful of short, kind of choppy ideas and weave them into one solid sentence. It's all about turning a boring list of facts into a story that actually flows. Here we go. These are our raw materials, straight from question 5 of the exam. 4 totally separate, simple sentences. I mean, listen to it. It's clunky, it's repetitive. It tells you what happened, sure, but it has zero style, zero impact. We can definitely do better. And voila! Look at the difference. It's night and day, right? We used a clause at the beginning, when Coach Ron walked off, to set the whole scene. Then we dropped in one of those participial phrases we talked about, leaving his team, to smoothly combine the last two ideas. Just like that, we went from 4 clunky sentences to one sophisticated, powerful statement. That's the magic of reconstruction. All right, let's try a more complex blueprint, this time about reforms in Morocco. The goal here is to connect a bunch of actions to their intended purpose. The strategy is pretty simple, actually. We'll use phrases that start with to state the goals, and then we'll use a clause that starts with which to tie it all up and show the final outcome. Let's see how it looks. And there you have it, the final product. All of those separate ideas are now locked together in this one, single, coherent sentence. It flows perfectly, right from the action, to the purpose, to the final outcome. That is what grammatical engineering is all about. So, after all this digging around, all this deconstruction and reconstruction, what's the big takeaway? I mean, why does any of this stuff really matter once you're out of the classroom? Well, the answer is pretty straightforward. This is not just some boring academic exercise. Mastering these tools gives you real control. It lets you shape your thoughts with absolute precision, make an argument that much more forcefully, or tell a story that's way more compelling. It is a legit practical skill for anyone who has to communicate with words. Ultimately, this is the transformation we're aiming for. It's about moving from the column on the left to the one on the right. It's the difference between having a messy pile of bricks and building a strong, elegant arch. It's about turning clumsy communication into something that is clear, powerful, and effective. So, I'm going to leave you with a little challenge. Go find the last email or report or even just a text message you wrote. Read it again, but this time, look at it with an architect's eye. What are its building blocks? And, more importantly, using some of the tools we've looked at today, how could you rebuild it to be even better?